Happy New Year, and welcome to The Future of Law is Today, where we have honest conversations about law, legal tech, and where the profession is going. I'm your host, Ceschino. Today's guest is Luís Alves Dias, founder and CEO of Legau, a legal tech company reimagining how lawyers draft, think, and work. Luís started his career in large international law firms, where he saw firsthand how much time and pressure go into every page of legal drafting. Instead of accepting that as the cost of the profession, he decided to change it. Along with his co-founders, he built Legau to make drafting smarter, faster, and less stressful. But the company's mission goes far beyond efficiency. Luís believes technology should support attorneys as people, reducing burnout, empowering better work, and helping lawyers reconnect with the purpose that drew them to the profession in the first place. He's also deeply involved in practical legal education, helping lawyers understand the business of law and navigate the human side of digital transformation. At its core, Luís's work is about balance between law and tech, performance and well-being, progress and empathy. Hey Luís, great to have you on the podcast today. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Can you tell me a bit about your professional journey from law to legal tech?
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And I love what you've been doing with the Legal Tech Guides. As you know, I'm a big believer in the power of education too. So it's great to be part of this journey, yours and the Legal Tech Guides journey. Yeah, so about my journey really started in the traditional path of any lawyer, at least in Portugal, my home country. I studied law in Portugal, completed my bachelor's and master's degrees, both in law, and then worked for two international law firms, one at a time. Hold on. Two at the same time would have been a lot of fun. One at a time, and both were amazing places to learn. I was surrounded by exceptional people working on cross-border deals. I learned a lot about the craft of law during those 7 years in those law firms. But over time, I realized that the parts of my work I really enjoyed the most were usually connected with the business aspects of the law firm itself or the business conversations with the clients. I remember a few times being in meetings with clients discussing their business, their operations, their business model, and so on. And at some point, the client looked at me as the lawyer in the room and asked me a legal question, which is expected and normal, right? I remember some of the times kind of thinking like, oh man, yeah, I'm the lawyer in the room. So I actually need to think about this from a legal perspective because I was so involved in the business aspect of the conversation. So I was fascinated by how companies actually operated, what drove these people, these businessmen, these board members' decisions, how actually ideas could be turned into real, sustainable, and impactful ventures. And that curiosity came from long ago during my years at law school, where I was part of the Students Association, and we did a lot of small things that had impact in the lives of other students, and that really stick to me. And eventually, I think all of this led me to question my own path as a lawyer, as someone that was going through the corporate ladder. So after 7 years in practice, two thoughts kept coming back to me. The first one was this growing desire to build something of my own, to learn beyond what I was doing in the law firm, the legal world, stuff like marketing, sales, even accounting. I no longer want to have anything to do with accounting after these years as an entrepreneur, but at the time it's really fun. So learning outside of an incremental path. The second was the realization that while my environment was really stable and predictable at this law firm, the world around me was becoming more uncertain, more complex, more volatile. And I felt that in such a world, probably I would grow more by stepping outside this stable and predictable and structured environment than by staying in this comfort zone that I already knew, and I already knew how the system worked. And something more like an anecdote, but I think it's very deep in overall in my journey. Around that time, my older nephew was born. And that made me think a lot about the implicit messages we receive in life. Those messages that no one actually tells you directly, they come from context, from culture, from examples you see, how people behave, how your father or your mother or people around you behave. And I realized that everyone in my close family had always worked for someone else, which is perfectly fine. But it also made me wonder if at some subconscious level, this idea of starting something of my own, why this might have felt so risky to me and even almost crazy at some point. And when I realized that, I wanted to challenge that pattern. And I wanted the next generation of the family, my nephews, my kids, eventually, when I have them, to grow up with a different kind of message that is possible to take an idea you have in your own head, work hard, and build something that is impactful to others. And I'm not saying this is the right path or that everyone should do this. There's nothing wrong with working for someone else. But what I'm saying is that sometimes, if that's the only path that people around you went through, you might not even consider that there's other possibilities. And for me, that was important in breaking that pattern and having an alternative message to the new generations of my family. Even if things don't go as planned in the end for me, at least I tried to do something with an idea I had in my mind and make it impactful to others. So at this point, I made the leap. It wasn't easy at the time because it was a very comfortable position, as you may imagine, but I felt it was important to be outside. And I always use this analogy of I might not know how to build a house, but now I'm in the rain, in the cold, so I'll be very motivated to actually learn how to do it. For me, that was important at the time. I ended up coming to legal tech for a lot of reasons that I mentioned, some others that I didn't mention, but this was kind of the transitioning thought process in my mind.
That's a fantastic story. And I love the point you made about looking forward to the next generation and thinking about what influences our own decisions and what will influence the decisions of our children, our nieces, our nephews. Because kind of similar for me, I was raised in a family that's very well educated, but we didn't have a family business. There was no family law firm, no family office furniture supply business. It's stereotypical things you think of when people go to law school or business school. But I was very much raised with the mindset that you go to school, you do well, you get degrees, and not only my mother, but even my grandmother, they both had PhDs. And so I was always instilled with this idea that not only will you go to college, but you will also go to grad school. And what you decide to study is up to you, but education is the path to a stable career and productive livelihood. But I think I had a slightly less comfortable experience. I went to a very large law firm, but it was one of those firms that had been around for 100 plus years, and then the partnership broke up over disputes about guaranteed income for partners who didn't necessarily manage to bring their books of business with them. And so that led to me having to make a choice. Am I going to stay in this profession, or am I going to go and explore other things? Because I had a lot of exposure to arts and literature and education in my household, but not so much law, not so much business. So kind of similar. I realized once I got into law and I was studying and practicing corporate law, that exposure made me realize, well, I actually want to learn more about the business side of things. Why are these investors and these business people making these decisions? What's the value they're providing? How are they reaching people and communicating that? And of course, that led to me making my own transition into legal tech and marketing. So listening to your path, I feel like there's some similar motivation. I was raised with this idea that it's all about education and getting a good job. And I think many people are, especially on my mother's side, people of African descent haven't always had the opportunities that everybody else has in this particular country. And so there's this fundamental idea that many of us have been raised with that, yes, education, being a good employee, being a good colleague, that's the path. But then if you get into the working world and you find out, well, that's not quite the guarantee I was told it is, you start thinking, well, what else is out there? That's been part of the motivation for me as well, as I look at not just how do I make myself a good employee for other people. I want to work well with people, obviously, but how can I start something new? How can I provide value that I don't see other people providing? And then how can I partner with people and provide that on equal terms, not necessarily coming to them and asking for a job, but saying, let's work together to build something new. So yeah, I love hearing your story and the motivation behind
Love that.
starting your company.
Love that. Love that. Thank you for sharing it. It's definitely can relate to that. And now I know that we both know what disappointing our parents looks like. I'm joking.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I was never pressured to go to law school or business school, but my mother likes to remind me frequently that with my degrees, all I need to do is get 3 publications, and I'd be eligible for a tenure track position because she's a professor. So she's always reminding me that I could be a professor too. So I think that's my version of disappointing her. But no, I'm kidding. She's always been very supportive.
Yeah. I have my own stories for sure. I mean, even still today, my parents at Christmas dinners and all of that always come with this conversation about, look at Luis, he spent all these years in law school, then practicing law, and now he has a weird thing with AI. So, but I know they're proud. I know they're proud. They might not understand exactly what I do sometimes, but I know they're proud. Jokes aside.
Yeah, and actually, that's a great segue into the rest of our conversation. So, you make a great point. Lots of people feel like they have a general understanding about what lawyers do, but not that many people understand what you're doing when you say you work in legal tech. And these days, those of us who are immersed in the AI world, we have a pretty good idea of what's going on with LLMs and what are LLMs versus machine learning and what's an MCP, and we're staying on top of all the trends. But when you're not immersed in that world, it can sound a little cryptic. So, there's a lot of noise around AI in the legal tech space. What can it actually do, and how are people using it today?
Hmm. Well, before going to the what it can actually do, let me also talk a little bit of the noise and how I see it from a vendor perspective. The noise we are seeing around AI in legal tech is really just, in my opinion, a reflection, something more foundational in our society as well. So today, looking like it seems to often matter more than actually being it. And we see it everywhere in startups where raising funds is treated like a huge achievement even before product or revenue exists. In social media, where perception often replaces substance, and that same mindset surrounds the AI conversation in the legal world. And a lot of it, in my opinion, comes from vendors doing irresponsible marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this tendency to make AI sound almost magical, vendors overpromise, and that creates confusion, honestly, fatigue among lawyers, at least many of the lawyers I talk to, because they hear all these big claims everywhere, but see very little differentiation in practice. And really, I'm not saying all the times, but many times, little impact as well. And at the same time, I think AI has dramatically lowered the barriers to entry. So it's easier than ever to build and ship products and to do outreach. So I think that also led to massive saturation. And so, frankly, everyone is kind of launching their own version of ChatGPT with a different color and logo. And that also creates this effect of commoditization of legal AI. So everything looks the same. People stop knowing what to trust, and lawyers don't have time to vet everything. So that's why I really like what you are doing with the legal tech guide. I think that's very, very important these days with all this noise, especially because in markets like this, I think the vendors that tend to win are those with deeper pockets. They can afford to be everywhere, buy visibility, and use that familiarity to create a false sense of credibility.
Right.
So status or looking like ends up replacing actual substance. But this being said, what I'm feeling now from the lawyers and the law firms I've been talking to is I see they are becoming more discerning. They are asking tougher questions, caring more about reliability and also integration with their actual workflows, which is something new, to be honest. But in recent conversations, I've been hearing from clients comparisons between what they are able to achieve, for instance, with our tool and comparing that with the big players, for instance. So they are actually doing this kind of exercises. And it's pretty cool to hear sometimes that when they want something that doesn't hallucinate, they choose our tool, although we are not everywhere as some of the big players. So yeah, this is to comment on the noise part. In terms of what can it actually do, at this point, it can actually do a lot, but it really depends on your mind frame. I really like this concept of ROIP, return on improved performance, which used to be used a lot in automation back in the days. Well, probably it's still being used, but they call it other thing. But what this concept does is rather than focusing on whether AI, for instance, does amazing research, 100% amazing research, or it's a piece of crap, it puts the focus on where is the right balance between the human involvement and AI. So even if using AI in research leads you to 60% of the end result, if that takes you 5 minutes instead of 2 hours, even if it's just 60%, well, that's probably better than spending those 2 hours to reach 60% and then the other 2 hours to reach the 100%. So maybe the best mix is, okay, let's spend 5 minutes with this AI doing legal research, and then the rest, the next 2 hours, let's say, actually looking at what you were able to get from it and even complement with other aspects. So for me, I mean, it can actually do a lot of things. For instance, with our tool, you can use AI to draft legal documents, not only contracts, we can also help you with pleadings, memos, resolutions. So different types of legal documents you can draft these days. It's great to have first drafts. I use it myself, and I get first drafts for employment agreements, services agreements, NDAs, and so on in a few minutes, 2-3 minutes, based on references that I trust. So it's not just hallucinating things. And instead of maybe spending 1 hour, 2 hours putting together this first draft, this definitely is something I can do. Now, does the contract output from the AI comes 100% amazing? Yeah, probably not. After those 5 minutes generating the contract, I'll have to review it carefully, but that will take me 20 minutes, up an hour. And instead of spending 1 hour, 2 hours actually drafting that and then review it, a more half hour on top of that. So it can definitely draft. It can definitely help you with research. It can help you with planning, brainstorming your document. Sometimes that's really important when you are, for instance, preparing a court filing. That brainstorming aspect can be really important. Or even if you are doing for the first time a contract or you are preparing for a negotiation. So there's definitely a lot of use cases I can mention here where AI is actually helping. But I think the most important thing for me, and the thing I would like maybe to convey here, is this idea of it really depends on how you frame things. Because if you go at it from a perspective, oh yeah, okay, it generated a contract, but it's not good. I will need to review it and add this and that. And yeah, probably you still need to wait 10 years or so to get it 100%. But if you go with the mind frame of, okay, how can this actually help me manage my workload in a better way? What is the right mix? Maybe it's not perfect, but definitely can help me. And I'm not talking only about time and efficiency. I think it's always very important for me as someone that has this background as a lawyer to also think about the peace of mind, the stress factors, and how AI can actually help you decrease that stress, have more peace of mind with your work. And that's something that we are seeing in our tool as well. To give you some data, 75% of our users say that they feel more satisfied at work by using our tool. So this is something that is real. You can actually, through technology, have this sort of impact. And so more than give you a list of 100 use cases, because they exist, I would prefer to focus more on how you frame things and how you approach the use of AI.
Lots of great insight. And you make several great points. So having worked in legal tech marketing for a while now, I share your frustration that there is this tendency to want to make AI sound like magic. And as you were talking, I was thinking, well, I wonder if this is just all these marketers trying to borrow from the Steve Jobs Apple playbook where everything is magic, just a magic button, magic pencil, right? And as you said, what you're ultimately selling is not just getting things done faster or having a magic button. It's really the peace of mind. So how do you convey peace of mind? Fundamental good marketing is you talk to people about the jobs they need to do. It's certainly B2B. You talk to people about the jobs they need to do. And if you are actually helping them do those jobs better, faster, more efficiently, more accurately, more securely, you talk about that. And that's where that peace of mind comes from. So it's not just about saying, wow, you wave your hand and here's a brief. It's like you said, we can get you through the first 60% of your tasks that usually takes you 2 hours in 5 minutes. And so you can focus on the back end where you're doing more of the analysis, more of the strategy, more of the critical thought, more of the things you actually went to law school to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like hearing you say that. And I think that that's the blueprint. It's not just about, again, not selling a magic button or a magic wand. It's about selling the peace of mind that comes from knowing you can get all that work done that you need to do and that you never have enough time to do. Now you can manage it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's dig a little more into that, because my next question is going to be, well, we're talking about noise around AI. How do we cut through the noise? And I think that's fundamentally it. It's not so much about just promoting AI. It's really about educating people in practical terms about legal tech and, incidentally, the business of law. And we'll get into that side of it as well, because I know you're doing some great work there. But how does all of this stuff really work? When we're looking at legal tech and AI, and if you're running a law firm or if you're running a legal team within a broader business, how is it helping you achieve your business goals? So can you dig into that a little bit more? How do we cut through the noise and really educate lawyers about what this stuff does instead of just trying to promote the magic button?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. And to be honest, I can say I have a definitive answer. But for me, cutting through the noise starts with education, as you said. And it's, of course, about explaining things in practical terms. And by practical, I mean in a way that lawyers can relate to. So in their context, with the kind of documents they use. And I think that's more important than sometimes we can imagine. I remember a few examples of departments, specific departments within clients. They adopted our tool. And at some point, the levels of usage were really low at this specific department. It was, if I remember correctly, a litigation department. And at some point, I remember kind of scratching my head because similar departments in other firms were really power users of the tool. And every time I spoke to a specific person of this department, of this new client, I felt they were concerned about AI and the impact AI could have in their practice, in their careers, in their jobs. But also, some of them felt like, yeah, I mean, what I do is something that AI cannot help me with. And I remember that at that point, we decided to build a specific training for that department. And after that training, I'm not saying 100% of them became power users, but at least I would say 50% of them became power users or heavy users of the tool. So education in practical terms in their context is very, very powerful and can really help them. But I think it's not only about helping them understand a specific technology, but also help them navigate these concerns they have, these fears they sometimes convey to you. Sometimes they don't, but when they convey these fears to you, I think it's very important to also help them navigate this. I'm not saying I'm a guru or that I have a team of gurus. Of course, we do our best. We are people that are heavily involved in the sector, thinking about how the industry will evolve and the future. We talk to a lot of people, so we basically share our knowledge and experience with them and how we see things and how they can adapt. So again, it's not just about a specific tool, but also helping them navigate these fears, these concerns, and also understand how technology and the business of law actually work together in the real world. And so when people understand the fundamentals, I think the rest starts to make sense and they can actually understand how they can adapt. And I think this is one of the ways. The other one is through credibility. And here, I think it's twofold. On the one hand, you can, let's say, borrow it through partnerships, collaborations, work with law schools, institutions that people already trust. On the other hand, you can earn it by consistently creating thoughtful content, adding value to lawyers, not just noise for the social media algorithm, but actually insights that help people. They might not be unique in the sense that maybe there's more people thinking like you, but that doesn't matter because maybe your audience is different from the other person's audience. And hopefully we can all share insights and experience in a moment where tremendous change is happening in the world of law. So I think, again, community sharing your knowledge experience is kind of a responsibility for everyone at this point. Insights that help people see things differently or solve their own problems or concerns. So in this sense, I'm again talking really about education. And lastly, I think focusing on authentic personal connection in a world where it's so easy to automate everything and send huge marketing campaigns and outreach to thousands of people, try to do the opposite, hyper personalize your outreach. Maybe this can mean instead of sending 10 emails, you can send a quick video or a voice message. I think people these days appreciate that more because there's a human element to it. So I'd say education, credibility, and this authenticity or personal connection, human aspect of your outreach, which all of them I think are hard.
Yeah, it's a fair point. So as somebody who's worked in legal tech marketing, I love hearing you mention the point about content. It's funny that there are truisms about, oh, nobody likes to read. And that may be true in many fields. But when you're talking to lawyers, a central part of the reason we went to law school is that we love to read. I've met very few lawyers, if any, who don't enjoy reading. But that doesn't mean that if you just put something in writing, lawyers are going to want to read it. As you were saying, is it actually helpful? Is it teaching them something they want to learn about? Is it helping them with something they need to know to run their practices, to adopt new technology, to learn the business side of things? And that's been my experience as well, that, yeah, lawyers will absolutely read good content if it's helpful to them. But to your point, it's tricky. If you don't have the expertise and if you never practiced law and you're not working with people who did practice law and you're not listening to prospects or customers, and getting a sense from them of what they're really doing day to day and what the challenges are that they're facing. What are they struggling with? What's keeping them up at night? If you don't know any of that, then yeah, you're not going to know what to write about or what to talk about to engage them. So the community side of that you highlighted, that's the other part. Are you actually connecting with people? Are you making sure that you understand who it is you should be talking to sell whatever it is you're selling? And then are you actually talking with them and listening to them? So yeah, I love the emphasis on community and education, and I can see why. You mentioned the 75%, I think it was a survey response, that people were saying, yeah, this is actually helping me. This is useful. It pays off. It's a long-term investment, certainly. It's not just about short-term getting demos and all that, but it does pay off in the long term if you're connecting with people and really giving them value beyond just your software.
I definitely believe that. Yeah, I definitely believe that.
Yeah, so as a bit of an aside, why education?
Well, education has always been personal to me in the sense that my mother was a teacher and I grew up seeing how much of a difference she made in these kids' lives. And also because in my personal case, I come from a middle class family living in the countryside in Portugal where opportunities were limited. And so having access to education actually changed my life. So meeting people from different backgrounds, learning from some great professors. I remember this feeling, not always, I must say, but I would say often. I felt my brain was kind of expanding. And it made me realize a lot of things about what is external, so the world around me and how things work, why Portugal, my home country, is how it is today, math problems, all of that. So a lot of explanations about the external world, but also it gave me a lot of avenues internally. And so for me, that was really transformative and was really about not just acquiring knowledge, but really about possibility for me as a human being. So I really remember a few times thinking about this, how Luís was different internally as someone that is processing this external reality. And education brought me there a lot of times. So it helped me discover a lot about myself, broaden my horizons. So I would say it created worlds inside of me, let's say. I hope I'm not being too philosophical here. That's also why education for me plays such a big role in how we connect as a company with the community. Even though we build technology, so we are a legal tech company, we are not a head tech company, for instance. We have this legal drafting tool. We see education as the bridge that helps lawyers actually understand and use the technology meaningfully. And since, again, there's a lot of noise around AI, for me, the best way to cut through it isn't really shouting louder. It's by teaching better and helping lawyers at this really big change in the legal world actually help them navigate that in the most smooth way possible. And that's very much aligned with our DNA, how the company was built from the beginning. And this philosophy we have that we've gone further because we stood on the shoulders of others, be it mentors, be it the authors that we read, be it the teachers we had, the colleagues, the communities. So giving back through education at this inflection point is something that, in my opinion, honors that DNA and that mindset we have since the beginning. And I must say that nowadays also, since we are talking about education, the fact that I'm also an invited professor on legal tech subjects is something I really enjoy as well a lot, being in touch with the new generations of lawyers and again, give back in a certain way to the legal communities.
Yeah, it's fantastic. There are a couple things you said I really love. One is it's not about shouting louder, it's about teaching better. And yeah, my internal reaction is say that louder for the people in the back. But yeah, that's exactly it. It's not just about getting attention. Like, yes, people talk about the attention economy and it's so difficult to get your message out there. But I think you're exactly right. Like I was saying, you said it. If you're giving people useful information, genuinely useful, and you're teaching them how to do something they want to learn how to do, they will listen. You'll find each other. It might take some time, admittedly. Yeah. It's a long-term investment. But yeah, I think that's absolutely the way to connect with people, absolutely the way to provide real value. And the other phrase you used was you're creating world inside people when you educate them. I love that way of thinking about it. I have children and they're both in elementary school, and it's really fun to see at this stage how they're, you have the early baby days where discovery is like learning how to stand, how to walk, and they're adorable, of course. But then once you get to the point where they can really start to articulate themselves and start to explore new subjects and they become curious about everything, they're asking you questions, right? Then you start to see them forming their own opinions, their own worldview, and how quickly they synthesize everything and they start to figure out, okay, this is what I make of the world and this is what I want to do in it. And so the more you expose them to, in a safe way, of course, but the more you expose them to, the bigger you make that internal world and therefore prepare them to take on the world in whatever way they're going to do that. So yeah, really, really well said.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that as well. I think in the end of the day, we really came here to learn. I don't want to be too metaphysical or spiritual here, but it's beautiful to listen to you talking about the way you see also your role in your kids' lives. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's really, really beautiful.
Well, I appreciate that. And yeah, I like to sometimes joke that a lot of lawyers seem to want to be robots and they try to convince other people that they are, but we're all human, So I welcome this sort of conversation beyond just law and legal tech and AI. And I certainly hope that our audience will appreciate it as well. I'm confident that they will. But there is one more thing I want to talk about in terms of practical legal terms, and that is we've been talking about education, but it's not just philosophical. It's not just in the abstract. You're actually putting pen to paper, so to speak, and providing people with something. So I've seen some of this in action. Can you tell us about your Business of Law 101 email series? What is that? Why did you start it? How's it going?
Okay. Yeah, sure. So the Business of Law 101 series came from a realization that while everyone in the legal world seems to be talking about AI, from the conversations I was having on a regular basis with users, with top management at law firms, so I'm talking about dozens and dozens of conversations. What I felt was that most lawyers still don't really understand how the business of law actually works. And at this inflection point, that's a problem. Because if we don't understand the underlying business and operating models, the economics, the incentives that drive law firms, it's impossible to really understand what AI will mean for the profession and how to prepare or to position yourself for that future. And if you understand that it's not just about intellectual curiosity, trying to anticipate the future, or see different avenues about how the future could look like. That's, of course, very interesting from an intellectual perspective, but it's more about how can we actually help these people now navigate something that is happening now. So, of course, I love to put my wizard clothes and have the crystal ball and all of that. I love to do that. But this is something very much practical that is really trying to help people navigate what is happening now by understanding how the business of law works and how AI is impacting it and why it's impacting it. So we decided to create something to fill that gap that we were filling by talking to these hundreds of lawyers. It's a 8-day email course. It's no fluff, just the core ideas distilled from about 15 years working across the legal industry as a lawyer, as a founder, as a law school teacher, and also, and more importantly, from hundreds of conversations with lawyers. I think, again, this is important to highlight. But in the end, the main message for me is this is something very practical that is here to help lawyers think not just about the technology, but about the systems that technology is transforming and how that impacts their careers, the lawyers' careers. And so far, the reception has been really good. And we had a lot of subscribers to this email series. It's for free, so it's free education on the business of law. And we've been receiving really good feedback as well from people that has been in the industry for a lot of years, but also junior associates from law firms. It's catering to different parts of the industry. And so far, the feedback has been really good to hear in the sense that it's aligned with what we actually wanted to achieve. And thank you for asking about this, because I think it's a piece of content that can really help lawyers and was built on top of this experience. That was a real experience that I had as a lawyer, as a legal tech builder, and also a law school teacher, and all the hours that I spent trying to understand the business of law and talking to people that know much more about the business of law than me, actually.
Yeah, it's fantastic insight on your part. And I'm glad you pursued it. It makes a lot of sense. When you look at law school, certainly in the US, most schools are still focusing on the how to think like a lawyer piece, right? There's been some movement where people are trying to get a little more into the practical side of things and how do you be a lawyer beyond just thinking through case law and anticipating how a judge will interpret a certain fact pattern and certain rule set. But pardon me for saying so, but law schools are a little slow to change, and the legal profession is a little slow to change. And so, similar thing, law firms, people are busy billing their hours, partners are busy pulling in more billable work, and there's often just not enough training going around, not enough mentorship, not really systematic. Often nobody's explicitly responsible for it, so it just doesn't happen. And some people get lucky and they're paired up with partners or at least senior associates or counsel who will take them under their wing and mentor them, but it's often something you have to really pointedly search out or else you don't get it. So yeah, I like that you're taking your years of experience and other people's collective experience and you're packaging it in this course as genuinely useful because it is important. Like I was saying, if you're running a law firm or trying to work your way up in the law firm, or if you're working in-house and you're actively interfacing with business stakeholders across different functional areas, you need to understand more than just law. You need to understand the business you're in, whether it's a legal services business or you're in an insurance company, a tech company, a hardware company, whatever it might be. You need to understand more than just what you learned in law school. So I think it's fantastic that you're providing this resource. Of course, I'm biased toward education, as we've discussed, but yeah, I think it's sorely needed. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, this has been a fantastic discussion. So at the end of every episode, I'd like to do a little segment I call Keeping It Human, because the point of all this AI stuff is really so that we can get more time back in our day and focus on strategy and creativity and spending time on our creative pursuits and with our families. You indicated that there's a little creativity behind the name of your company. So can you tell me what exactly is the secret?
Oh, wow. Yeah, there's a little pun intended. As you know, I'm from Portugal and we speak Portuguese there, of course. And well, in some Portuguese speaking countries like Brazil, the word legal means both legal, like law related, but also cool or awesome. The way they pronounce it is actually, instead of legal, is legal. So there's this small twist in Portuguese where legal is actually pronounced legal. So that's where the name came from. It's a little play on words that reflects exactly what we were trying to do, which is bring this freshness, personality, and a bit of that cool factor into the legal world, which usually is a little bit perceived as boring or gray. We think technology like ours can help achieve that. So it was this little pun with legal and coolness. So legal cool stuff.
Yeah, I like it. You're the cool legal tech company. Has anybody ever caught that pun?
Well, Portuguese speaking people all the time. English speaking, so we always need to explain why when they ask us about the name. But it's also a good icebreaker because people are curious about the name. They understand it's legal because it's very similar, legal and legal. So it's a good icebreaker. It's a good topic for conversation.
Yeah, I like it. I like the creativity that goes into it. I won't name any companies, but I've seen some people poking fun at typical legal tech naming conventions. So I always appreciate a creative name myself.
Thank you.
All right. So, Luis, this has been a fantastic conversation. If people want to get in touch with you, whether it's to talk about Legau or to talk about legal tech or the business of law, legal education, any of it, how can they reach you?
Yeah, so people, if they want to learn more about Legau, what we are doing, or even schedule a quick chat to see the product in action, the easiest way is through our website, legau.com. And if you'd like to connect personally, always happy to chat about legal tech, the future of legal services. So you can just reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name is Luís Alves Dias. You can definitely reach out to talk about legal tech, future of legal services, or education, or other topics. Always happy to chat with people and learn. And I must say, it was really a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for inviting me. It's been really thoughtful and really interesting conversation. Really, really look forward to see what's coming in the legal tech guide journey ahead. Really, really excited about that.
Thank you very much, Luis. I certainly appreciate you. I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you to everyone who listened and joined us today. Please feel free to be in touch as well. Luis is a great resource. And of course, if you're just getting started on your legal tech journey, thelegaltechguide.com is your starting point. So don't be a stranger. I'm on LinkedIn, Ceschino, Brooks DeVita. Luis, thank you for joining me today. Thank you, everyone who joined us, and I'll catch you next time. That's it for this episode of The Future of Law is Today. Subscribe for more straight talk on law and legal tech, and share it with someone who still thinks Master of Laws when you say LLM. Thanks for listening.